A jury of white guys who hold the fate of a young man's life in their hands. Let's do another book versus movie! Hello, welcome to Christy Grey Scarlet Pen. I am an author, book lover and creativity chaser, and I am here today to do another book versus movie battle royale. I'm cheating a little bit today because technically this book that was made into a movie is a play. So I'm talking of course about 12 Angry Men. I think, don't quote me, that we studied this in school when I was in school. A lot of schools I think end up studying 12 Angry Men for various reasons or another, but I think we did the film more so than the actual play itself, because technically not really a book, a script that has been printed for the sake of being able to have the play in a book form. As far as I'm aware, this is done often. Plays and things like that are written out in books and printed like that. So I'm not totally surprised. I was surprised to find out that it was actually a play, a complete play, and the play wasn't based off of a book, but this is really just a play that was written, that was performed in front of people, and then made into a film. So, but I did technically read the play in book format from the library, and then compare it to the film, which I watched. So it technically counts, and I'm counting it. So we're gonna roll with it. So if you haven't heard about 12 Angry Men because, you know, you lived under a rock in school or your school just chose not to use it, it was a story, and I think the movie must have come out in like the 50s because it was black and white, a good black and white film. I love black and white old school films, so for me that wasn't a problem, but essentially it is these guys, 12 jurors back when juries were made up of just white guys, and they come into, not very PC these days, but they come into the jury room and they talk about and decide the fate of this guy who's on trial for murder. He might be Mexican, but I'm not 100% sure on the ethnic struggles that were in the 50s, so I'm not 1,000,000% sure, but he was some sort of other ethnic diversity to them, and there was a lot of stuff that this book covered, because you have 12 different people from 12 completely different walks of life, completely different biases, and completely different points of view about people, about what's right and wrong, about how things possibly could happen. And the entire point of this story is that these 12 jurors come and one holdout just wants to decide. They're not sure about the guilt and they just want to talk it through. I think there have been a lot of other TV shows and movies and books and other things that have sort of spurned off of this idea and been like, well, one holdout, you know, that's all you need. Like, people say that a lot. It was really interesting to sort of get this jury deliberating and discussing. So you didn't get it as a normal narrative. So you have lawyer shows where you might get some aspect of jury deliberation in some shows, but most of the story is about presenting that information, whereas in 12 Angry Men you actually get it after all the evidence has been presented, and you're running through it again and you're pulling out the inconsistencies and going over all the story and etc, etc, and there's a lot of this personal biases and problems that come into this as well. So that's the general sort of gist of the movie and the play. I will say they were very much identical-ish. I think there probably were a couple of things that were a little bit different, and I think the ending they sort of expanded that a little bit more, but it was really close aligned, closest that you'll ever get, because it was a play. So the whole point was to do it like the play. So there was, it was very similar. Because it's a play, I don't really think you can technically count the book better than the movie. It's designed to be performed. So you have to give this to the movie. Like, the movie wins. Like, you have to, because that is sort of the medium it's supposed to be in. But I will say this, it was really interesting to be able to read this and sort of get this written version, because, you know, you can ruminate on words when they're written down, as opposed more so than when they're on a movie and they're going past faster. These days you can pause movies, but if this was actually being done as a play and you're in an audience, a line could go past you, you could miss it, you could miss something, you know, extra that you might have been able to realize about that line, about that character, then when you can actually sit down and read it. So that was nice to get that extra sort of extended look into these lines and these characters and these motivations. So there, like I said, there were small tweaks, but this was like, they stuck real close, which you can 1,000,000% understand why, and they should, because it's a play. I really enjoyed the movie when I watched it / studied it. I can't actually fully remember. It's been a while since I've been in school. But I did enjoy it, and I still enjoy the movie. I like watching it. I like seeing how these characters evolve, and we sort of get some of their biases unraveled, and in the end I feel like justice was, you know, well done, because they actually sat down and made the time to decide properly. And I think that sometimes juries often will vote with their biases or their passions, but this was a really great way to deconstruct that and say, we need to not do that. We need to, you know, I mean, don't be a dick about it. Like, don't badger somebody because you just think they're wrong, but being able to open it up and say, well, why do you think that? And then being able to say, well, why do you think that? And being able to sort of discuss it in this, I think the art of discussion is lost in, the art of reasonable debate is becoming lost. I think that a lot of debate these days is, you're wrong because you're an idiot, as opposed to, I think it's this way and this is my reasons why, and being able to say, we disagree, but it's okay, and I'm not angry at you because we have a disagreement. So I think the art of generally being able to politely disagree with somebody else is lost, but it's nice to see it in this format of, he disagrees and a lot of people disagree and they're not very polite to him, but he's able to come at their disagreements and their attacks at him for just being stupid or, you know, what have you. He's able to come at it with a calm, reasonable perspective, and I think that more of us need to be like that, let's face it. We can get pretty passionate these days, especially, but I liked seeing that, and I think that it was really nice, and I think it still holds weight, even though it's not all 12 men anymore, even though things are run a little bit differently. There is different biases these days, but there are some common themes and common biases which still exist. There is still racial biases, there are still class biases. So it was really good, and I think it still holds today. I think it still has a place for looking at and watching and discussing today, and I really hope that schools continue to teach this, because personally I think there are a lot of things we can get out of it. Thank you so much for watching this video. This book versus movie went to the movie. As I said, it was really, you know, a no-brainer for this one for the movie to win out. But if you liked it, then check out the other videos that I've done for book versus movie, because I have a playlist. They are pretty cool, and I have done some much more up-to-date books and movies than this one. There are some really fun things in there, so go check that out, and I will see you in the adventures.